Good morning. Good morning. I want to convene this meeting of the Labor and Public Employees Committee meeting. I do want to let folks here know that we will be recessing while we go into caucus, and we will let you know when we reconvene. But I would think you have at least a half hour. I think a half hour will be plenty. Let me say it that way. Thank you. We'll now go into recess. Good morning. It's still morning, and we'll reconvene the meeting of the Labor and Public Employees Committee. And are there any remarks by my co-chair and by our ranking members? Representative Weir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to acknowledge that Senator Sampson's down the hall in housing and cannot, maybe stepping back in, but not here right now.
Thank you. Yes. Oftentimes when you see missing committee members, it's because we have multiple meetings that we're juggling. And Senator Sampson was clear about that, but thank you for mentioning it. I am going to then go to item 3 on the agenda, which is concepts to be raised. And I've been asked to go through each one of these concepts and give a brief description of the concept, and that we will then be voting the agenda as a package on a voice vote after the description. So item number 1, an act concerning the employment of minors at least 16 years of age in certain occupations. This is a concept that would allow, now there are jobs, occupations that are 16 and 17-year-olds are prohibited from performing. And this is a bill that would allow certain occupations to be held by 16 and 17-year-olds. And I think that in the public hearing, we would hear specifics about which occupations would be allowed for 16 and 17-year-olds that are currently prohibited. Any questions about that concept? Okay, seeing no hands, I'll go to item number 2 on the agenda, an act concerning labor law violations. This is a concept that was brought to us that would identify where, for instance, in a construction trade, a subcontractor was found guilty of certain labor law violations. It would not allow that contractor to go bankrupt and then open up a new company. They would still be, the labor law violations would still be attached to the new company. I think that's a concept, and I know there's pros and cons on this that people want to hear, how we might do that. I think everybody would agree that when somebody has violated the law, they shouldn't be allowed to get out from under it by simply changing the name of their company or starting a new company. So that's the intent of that bill. Any questions? Thank you. Item number 3, an act requiring centralization of workforce development information. This is a concept that was brought to us that would compile all of the various workforce development programs that might be run by different agencies and have a central location within the Department of Labor for people to reference and to guide them to these resources. Any questions? Seeing no hands, I'll move to item number 4. This is an act concerning denials by the Medical Examining Board and the State Employee Retirement Commission. And this was a suggestion that came to us from the minority leadership at both chambers. I have to admit, I don't think I can explain it, but we have put it on the agenda for purposes of having a hearing and better understanding the concept. Any questions? Seeing no hands. The next item on the agenda is an act concerning recommended revisions to labor statutes by the Legislative Commissioner's Office. These are revisions that are not substantive, but will be making it right. I'm looking over at our LCO. I know there's a better way to say that, but essentially fixing things in statute that might not be worded in accordance with other statutes. So making everything conforming changes. Is that the right word? Oh, technical conforming changes. I knew it was going to come to me, but I was close. Any questions on that? The next item is an act concerning neutral arbitration for teachers. We did hear this bill last year and it was moved out of our committee. This is a concept that would provide in statute for teachers who are disciplined or discharged to have access to neutral arbitration. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on to the next item, item number 7, an act concerning workplace notice and reasonable accommodations for menopause-related conditions. This is a concept that I'm certainly anxious to hear, having experienced that myself at one time. But I think this is really similar to some of the other maternal health issues that we find in the workplace have an impact in the workplace, and we would like to hear this bill. Any comments or questions? Representative Weir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we screened this on Friday with the topic. Are this type of conditions, as in the title, are there not protections already through, for different types of medical, or I don't know if you'd refer to this as medical, but is this, there's no other protection currently?
I don't believe so, because I don't think it's considered a condition that would be recognized by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. But I think that's one of the things we would try and get at through the hearing. And I know there are maternal health specialists who brought this to our attention and would like the opportunity to maybe propose accommodations that could be made that would be reasonable. I think, it's a good topic for a public hearing, and we'll see where it goes from there. Any other comments or questions? Seeing no hands. Item number 8, an act concerning youth employment classification. This is a concept that was brought to us by the city of New Haven about giving more opportunities to young students who are in career pathway programs to have an opportunity to work. We are asking that we have a public hearing on this issue, but we also will be mindful of federal laws that we might have to abide by that would they would preempt what we could do as a state. But it's a good topic for discussion about getting young people into career pathways programs that are supervised and part of their educational program. Any comments or questions? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item number 9, an act concerning cameras in open air markets. And I have heard from some of the advocates for this bill that a more accurate term to use would be micro markets as opposed to open air markets. So you would likely see a title change but I think the issue is, there are 2 issues here. The issue is now we see these micro markets where people, in some case workers, but people in general, like the one we have over here on the 3rd floor, can go get an item and then pay for it, and there's no one checking them out. And this is now something that is happening in work settings. And the issue here is that we have state laws that protect workers in their break rooms from cameras. And so if we're going to change that for these micro markets, we have to work out what would be the circumstances where that would be allowed. So that's the issue. And, I'm anxious to see if we can find accommodations on this bill. The next item on the agenda is health insurance for retired paraprofessionals. This is a concept that was raised because we have some long-term paraeducators who might have not qualified or have the right health insurance once they retire. And so this is a concept that we've been asked to raise here with regard to those paraeducators' retirement prospects. Any questions? The next item is an act concerning self-checkout. And I should note for the record that these titles will very likely change once the bill has been drafted, and LCO will often make up a title that is more appropriate for the bill. This is really our shorthand to get the concept raised, but it is regarding in grocery stores. We now see a lot of self-checkout, and oftentimes customers are frustrated when there's no one to help them with the problem they might have with the self-checkout. So it is a concept about what kind of staffing do you have to have when you have self-checkout. It's a lot about the consumer protection aspect of self-checkout. Any questions or comments? The next item on the agenda is an act increasing the per diem rate for members of the State Board of Labor Relations. And I do want to note that there will be a title correction here because this was our mistake in putting that title on it. It is a concept about the per diem rate for members of the State Mediation and Arbitration Board. There are two different boards, and this concept that we were talking about is specifically for state mediation and arbitration. I know that last year we had a bill that actually covered both state mediation and arbitration and state labor relations. I think we'll have some more discussions as the bill is being drafted and before the public hearing as to what's the most appropriate way to go. Is it to have both of them, or is it to have it mostly focused as originally intended on the State Board of Mediation and Arbitration? Any comments or questions? Seeing no hands, we will go next to item number 13, an act concerning hazardous duty pensions for CSSD enforcement support employees and judicial type investigators. This is a bill that we've had before. We have hazardous duty pensions in certain types of public sector employment where the jobs are dangerous. And what's being suggested here in this concept is that we have other public employees who are also working in very dangerous, hazardous situations, and that should be recognized in their pensions. So that's what this concept is about. Any comments or questions? Seeing no hands. The next is item number 14, an act concerning limitations on the use of non-compete agreements. And we have had this bill before about when instances where non-compete agreements are too restrictive and force employees to be limited in their job opportunities. And so that's a concept we've had. We've had public hearing on it, and I don't know of any change in that concept. Any hands, any questions? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is an act concerning violence protections for natural gas workers. And this concept is very similar to a bill that was handled in a different committee in public health, I believe, where we enacted protections for visiting nurses that are going into people's homes. And it was raised with us that in some cases, natural gas workers go into people's homes and they're facing the same kind of it doesn't happen often, but we want to make sure they're just as protected as other workers. And that's the concept. The next item on the agenda is an act concerning unemployment insurance dependency allowance. This is a concept that came to us late in session last year, and it was raised and voted on. I believe it was voted on in the Senate. If not voted on, it was, I don't know if it was voted on, but it was definitely one of our placeholder bills had the same information in it about raising the dependency allowance. Just for folks understanding, under state unemployment insurance rules, a person who's on unemployment receives additional allowance for dependents. And that allowance is $15, which was enacted a long time ago. And it is very low compared to what it costs now to address your needs when you're on unemployment in terms of your dependent family members. So that's the concept, that we would increase the amount of the dependency allowance. Any questions? Seeing no hands, the next item on the agenda is an act concerning minimum fair wage for cannabis employees. This came to our attention after the cannabis statutes were adopted. There was an effort by some employers to claim that these were tipped workers, and we want clarification in statute that these do not qualify under current state law, do not qualify as tipped workers. And it's a clarification. Any questions or hands? Seeing none, I'll move on to an act concerning effects of AI on the trades. Again, this is one of those concepts that I don't have a lot of information, but I think all parties thought it would be a good idea in this era of artificial intelligence to think about ways it might impact unintended consequences of impacts in the trades. And so that's the concept, and I assume we'll hear more in the public hearing on that issue. Seeing no hands, the next item on the agenda is an act concerning changes to the firefighters cancer relief fund. This is really a technical change, not a change with substance, but it has to do with the reporting. Where does the treasurer report on the cancer relief fund to make sure that it is within the correct committee of cognizance in statute? Seeing no hands on this, I'll move on to item number 20, an act concerning a stipend for employees of the Connecticut Civil Air Patrol. I must say this was a very interesting conversation and discussion with the chairs. Connecticut employees of, actually, I think this will probably, the wording may be changed because it's really not employees. They're actually volunteers. So people volunteer for the Connecticut Civil Air Patrol, and they take time off from their work to be able to do really important work for the state of Connecticut, work that many of us are unaware of. And this concept would create a stipend or payment to those volunteers to some extent for taking time off from their work to be able to do this work for the state of Connecticut. That's a new concept. We've not heard that before. And finally, item number 21, an act concerning death benefits for Department of Correction employees. And this is a concept that would add, unfortunately, there was a death of a correction officer, and our police and fire have a fallen heroes fund that the Connecticut provides a one lump sum payment to those families when a death occurs on the job. And we had the death of a correction officer and they're not covered by that. So this proposal is to grant them that same benefit. And that is the totality of our agenda for today. I have been told, let me just
You need a motion?
hold on one second though. Let me pause for one moment.
No.
We're going to take a brief pause in this meeting to allow another chair to record their attendance here today, since we're taking a voice vote. So we'll be pausing for just a moment. My good colleagues just instructed me on something I was unaware of, since this hasn't happened in the 8 years I've been here. But we can hold the meeting open for attendance purposes. so that everyone has an opportunity. But before we move to a motion and a vote, I want to recognize our ranking member, Senator Sampson.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, and thank you for that kind word and the note that we are going to have a voice vote on this entire agenda today. I'll just say a quick word about concepts generally. There's quite a few items on this agenda, I think 21 items altogether. And I've said this many times before, but for anyone who's not aware, we're voting simply on titles and whether or not we're going to have a conversation about these items in the future. A vote up or down on any of these items is not an indication of how someone might ultimately vote once there's bill language associated with it. So I just wanted to put that on the record. I appreciate the chairs working with us to have a little bit more bipartisan effort put into this agenda. There's certainly some items that I don't think I will support going forward, but I am more than willing to be open to the conversation, in particular because we're going to hear some Republican items as well. So thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions before I ask for a motion? So do I have a motion on items 1 through 21 on this agenda? It's been moved by Representative Wilson, seconded by Representative Hughes. And will the clerk call the items before we take the voice vote? He doesn't need to do that. See, I'm telling you, this is a whole new territory for me. So we have a motion to pass items 1 through 21 on our agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we will keep the meeting open for, I understand that Senator Cabrera has recorded his attendance. So at this time, we will adjourn the meeting of the Labor and Public Employees Committee. And I do want to make the announcement that the next meeting of this committee will be a public hearing on the 24th of February. No other comments. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.